What's up, African Fight Fam? It's your boy JB back at it again with another episode of Bass Bows. I know it's been a while I did one of these, but if in case you are late to the party, this is one of the series on the African fighters where I pick a news and do a deep dive and tell you what I feel about said topics. But today we are going to talk about why UFC Africa should happen right now. Before we do, subscribe, do all the good stuff for the African fighters. Alright, so this morning when we wake up, when you woke up, probably from last night, you saw, or it's everywhere on MMA social media, Twitter, Instagram, wherever, of Dricus receiving the Heroes Welcome in South Africa. And this got me thinking. After Dricus beat Strickland for the middleweight title, a lot of people were speculating about Easy versus Dricus in UFC 300. And I was one of those people, but now I don't think I want that anymore. And I feel like the UFC, after seeing that reception that Dricus had, are feeling like, we've got diamonds here. No pun intended, but you get what I mean. Diamonds, they're diamonds in South Africa, isn't it? Did remember Dana White just before UFC 297, he mentioned Dricus. If Dricus wins the title, we are gonna go to South Africa. If you haven't, this is the clip.
Fights have come by finish. If Dricus becomes the world champion, it's a no-brainer. We go to South Africa. But Africa has been on my radar for a long time.
And of course, we have to take whatever Dana says with a pinch of salt because he has been promising UFC in Mexico, UFC in Africa for a long time. We had the era of the Three Kings, 2 champions from Nigeria and 1 from Cameroon, and we did not see that. We know that Dana is a huge boxing fan. He was a huge fan of Rumble in the Jungle, which I'm pretty sure he would want to emulate something like that, do another Rumble in the Jungle, but this time with MMA. But he never really got a chance to do that, or I should say, then it never really came to fruition. If you'd ask me, the person to do that would be Francis Ngannou. Let's not get sidetracked here. Supersport. You don't know Supersport. Supersport, the biggest broadcasters of sports in Africa at large. Broadcast, they're partners of the UFC. They broadcast the pay-per-views and all the fight nights. And I've never seen Supersport dedicate their staff and their team and their crew and everything to a UFC event like this one ever. They had their representatives fly to Toronto because obviously Dricus was there. It was a big deal. Supersport was heavily involved. This isn't the first time. Mind you, before Dricus came to the UFC, he had been fighting with EFC and EFC broadcast on Supersport. So there is already a relationship there. And the clip that I showed you of Dana White saying they'll come to Africa, it was from one of the Supersport pages. So that being said, you would see that this all points to UFC Africa happening. And that's why I don't want UFC 300 to happen. Because if Dricus fights on UFC 300, there's a chance that, obviously it's MMA, a lot of things can happen. There's a chance that he can lose the title to whomever he fights, say a Chimaev or whomever he fighting, to do for the UFC business-wise and obviously merit-wise is to get Easy challenger Dricus champion on South African soil. First of all, Dricus wants the fight. Ever since Dricus came into the UFC, he has been talking about fighting in South Africa. Well, he told me himself. I interviewed Dricus about 2 years ago.
And then from next year start fighting top 20. And in 2 years' time, I want to have that belt around my waist. That's the plan.
Yeah, and probably headline UFC Africa in South Africa, right?
That'll be amazing.
Yeah.
You heard it from the horse's mouth here. He told me he would fight for the title in 3 years' time, which to my calculation is about the same time that he won the title, which was last week. And he also mentioned fighting in Africa as well. So for the longest time, Dricus has been bigging up South Africa. He has been bigging up fighting in South Africa, which would be a big dream of his. And when we look at the other side of the spectrum, Izzy, we already know about the drama going on between Izzy and Dricus. There's a long history. I don't have to tell you nothing. Just go online and search both of their names. You see them standing in the middle of a UFC octagon. That was building up to be the biggest pay-per-view of the whole of 2023. before Strickland came and spoiled the show. But like last year, 2023, if Dricus fought Izzy for the title, that would have been the biggest pay-per-view the UFC did that whole year, because I'm pretty sure it would do better than Izzy and Pereira. Pretty sure it would do better than Izzy and Strickland, just because of the storyline and the race situation going in there. There would be fans that will be clamoring for one guy and the other guy. So I feel like that would do very, very good business for them. But that's not to say that UFC Africa would not do good business for them. It would do absolutely crazy numbers. And last year wasn't a very good year for the UFC. I've been saying it. They didn't sell a lot of pay-per-view. There's a lot of star power that got lost. Some big champions, big draws left. Like we saw Ngannou left. He's a big drop for them. Kamaru Usman lost his title. He's a big drop for them. We saw Amanda Nunes relinquish her titles. She was in how kind of way a big draw as well. So they wanted that marquee fight, and that was what was lined up to be the marquee fight, Izzy versus Dricus. Then we lost that. Now, UFC 300, a lot of people have been talking about the fight to come back. No. I feel like we're risking UFC Africa. So if the UFC are pretty smart, I'm sure they will do the right thing. They would wait and come to South Africa. And it is very doable for them. I've made a list about where UFC Africa should happen, and I think in South Africa it only makes sense for it to happen in Pretoria because Dricus is from there. There is an arena capable of doing that in Sunbet Arena, although not very big arena, but it should be okay. At this point, with the kind of popularity we've seen with Dricus, he could sell out a stadium. Although we know that the UFC are not in the business of doing stadium events. I don't think I've ever seen a stadium event. Oh, maybe that one time they went to Australia where Easy came out and he danced. Yeah, but they're not. The UFC is not really big on stadiums. They prefer like a smaller, intimate arena. Now, now this begs a question, right? Let's look at this from the two fighters' point of view, right? Let me start with Dricus. A lot of people online have been talking about, oh, he's white, oh, he's not real African. The conversation about real and not real African. But I feel like the people making that argument are mostly Americans, because in America, when you say African, African means a black person. So they probably look at it that way. But I don't think there is any other UFC fighter that big ups his country like Dricus does. Everything he does, he carries the South African flag. Everything he does. He won the title. His Octagon interview, he was like, wait, hold up, I need to have my flag here. He has been talking about South Africa from the first day he fought on Fight Island without any fans. He has been talking about South Africa carrying the flag the longest time, and he has been talking about defending it in South Africa. So him fighting Easy will be two things for him. Number one, he's going to make the most money he has ever made in his life, because right now he's a champion. He's in the A side, which means that he's going to get pay-per-view points, and that is going to, in my opinion, the fight with Easy will sell 1 million pay-per-view buys, and that's like life-changing money. So I feel he gets that, and he gets to defend his title on African soil against an African. So we sort of Battle of the Africans. I feel that would be enough for him. We already know that's not hidden. Now let's look at Easy in the other side. I'm going to take you guys back to Rumble in the Jungle. If you were not old enough to see Rumble in the Jungle happen, I'm gonna refresh your memory. Okay. So Rumble in the Jungle was Muhammad Ali versus George Foreman. It happened in Zaire, which used to be it used to be Zaire, but now it's Congo Kinshasa in the stadium. The president at that time, who a lot of people call the dictator, sponsored it. It was promoted by Don King, and it is said to be arguably the greatest sporting event of the 20th century, and was a major upset with Ali coming as the 4-1 underdog, and he's going to go against George Foreman, who was at that time a heavy hitter, undefeated. And that was when all the cards were stacked against Ali. And what made that huge was the fact that Ali knocked out Foreman and he did the whole rope a dope thing. But the whole aura, the whole chaos around it, it wasn't a beautiful presentation. And this was argued to be watched by over a billion people across the world watch this fight. A lot of people have been saying, well, it has not been confirmed that it's the biggest viewed TV broadcast of all time because of how huge that fight was. So now we know that Easy, relating this back to Easy, we know that Easy is a storyteller. He has been talking about manifesting stories in his head. And this is a perfect, perfect story for him to manifest because imagine this, right? Going through everything you've gone through, you as a Easy, right? I'm talking about Adesanya, and then losing your title and then getting your title back and then dropping that huge promo of fortify your mind,
Fortify your mind and feel this level of happiness.
right? And losing your title again, now coming back to get your title on African soil against a South African whom you've already had some promo battles going on already. Remember that part where Dricus said, I am African, but I'm not your brother. Yeah.
What's up?
I'm African, but I ain't no brother of yours, son.
I know for a certain that Easy would love that. He already said he wants to drag the carcass of Dricus around the streets of South Africa.
I want to whoop his ass so bad. I want to do it in South Africa or Nigeria. I will gladly drag his carcass across South Africa. Wallahi.
So with that being said, with all these things I've mentioned, I hope that I have convinced you, not confused you, with the fact that we have to see Easy versus Dricus UFC Africa. Could be UFC 302, 303. It has to happen this year. Please, please, I beg you, Dricus, do not accept to fight in UFC 300. Please, I beg you, Easy. I am being a very, very selfish African fan. We need you. We need Easy versus Dricus on African soil, and I feel like if the two of you um don't budge with the UFC with regards to UFC 300, I feel like this could be a reality. Yeah, so that's it, guys. Tell me what you think about this in the comment section below. Do the like and subscribe and all the good things for us. We really, really appreciate you guys. Yeah, Africans Fighters signing out.
Come on, Africans!